We are living through the greatest thinking crisis in human history, and it's most people don't even realize it's happening. Right now, AI generates your answers before you finished asking the question. Search engines remember everything so you don't have to. Algorithms curate your reality, telling you what to think before you've had the chance to think for yourself. We've built the most sophisticated cognitive tools humanity has ever known, and in doing so, we've systematically dismantled our ability to use our own minds. A recent MIT study found that students who exclusively used ChatGPT to write essays showed weaker brain connectivity, lower memory retention, and a fading sense of ownership over their work. Even more alarming, when they were stopped using tools later, the cognitive effects lingered. Their brains had gotten lazy, and the damage was not temporary. This isn't about technology being bad. Look, I'm the last person to take that posture. This is about survival. In a world where machines can think faster than we can, the ability to think clearly, to reason, to analyze, question, and decide has become the most valuable skill you can possess. Those who can think will thrive. Those who can't will be left behind. Let's be clear about what we're facing here. Multiple studies across 2024 and 2025 have found a significant negative correlation between frequent AI tool usage and critical thinking abilities. We're not talking about a slight dip in performance. We're talking about measurable cognitive decline. A Swiss study showed that more than frequent AI use led to cognitive decline as users offloaded critical thinking to machines. With younger participants aged 17 to 25, I think the study said, showing higher dependence on AI tools and lower critical thinking scores compared to older age groups. Now think about that. The generation that should be developing the sharpest minds is instead experiencing the steepest cognitive erosion. The data gets worse. Researchers from Microsoft and Carnegie Mellon University found that the more users trusted AI-generated outputs, the less cognitive effort they applied. Confidence in AI correlates with diminishing analytical engagement. We're outsourcing our thinking, and in the process, we're forgetting how to think at all. But AI dependency is only part of the story. Our entire information ecosystem has become hostile to independent thought. Social media algorithms create filter bubbles that curate content aligned with your existing views. Users online tend to prefer information adhering to their worldviews, ignoring dissenting information and forming polarized groups around shared narratives. And when polarization is high, misinformation quickly proliferates. You're not thinking anymore. You're being fed a carefully constructed reality designed to keep you engaged, keep clicking, but not keep you informed. The algorithm knows what you'll click on, what will make you angry, and what will keep you scrolling. And every time you accept that curated reality without question, your capacity for independent thought atrophies just a little bit more. So, here's where it gets personal. Schools used to teach you how to think. They now teach you what to think. And that's a massive difference. Research from Harvard Professional Schools found that while more than half of faculty surveyed said they explicitly taught critical thinking in their courses, students reported that critical thinking was primarily being taught implicitly. So what's the translation of that? Professors think they're teaching thinking skills, but students aren't actually learning them. Students were generally unable to recall or define key terms like metacognition or cognitive biases. The problem runs deeper than higher education. Teachers struggle with balancing demands of covering vast amounts of content with the need for in-depth learning experiences. And there's a misconception that critical thinking is an innate ability that develops naturally over time. But research shows the opposite. Critical thinking skills can be explicitly taught and developed through deliberate practice. So why aren't we doing it? Because education systems reward compliance and memorization, not inquiry and analysis. Students learn to regulate information for tests. They regulate it, they prioritize it, they regurgitate it, but not to question assumptions or evaluate evidence. They're taught to accept authority, not challenge it, to consume information, not to interrogate it. We've created generations of people who are educated, are great test takers, but who cannot think, who have degrees but lack discernment, who can Google anything but can't reason through problems on their own. Let's talk about what you're actually losing when you stop thinking for yourself. First, you lose agency. When you can't analyze information independently, you become dependent on whoever controls the information flow. Political leaders, social media influencers, big tech corporations, algorithms, they all shape your reality, and you don't even realize it's happening. 73% of Democrats and Republicans here in the US can't even agree on basic facts. Not opinions, facts. That's what happens when thinking skills collapse. You can't distinguish between what's true and what you want to be true. Second, you lose adaptability. Repeated use of AI tools creates cognitive debt that reduces long-term learning performance and independent thinking and can lead to diminished critical inquiry, increased vulnerability to manipulation, and decreased creativity. In a rapidly changing world, the inability to think flexibly and adapt to new information is a death sentence for your career, your relationships, and your relevance. Now, third, you lose connection to your work, your decisions, your life. 83% of students who use ChatGPT exclusively could not recall key points in their own essays, and none could provide accurate quotes from their own papers. When you outsource thinking, you forfeit ownership. Your work stops being yours. Your ideas stop being original. You become a conduit for someone else's thinking, not a generator of your own. Research shows that partisan echo chambers increase both policy and affective polarization compared to mixed discussion groups. We get this whole polar opposites versus having a mixed discussion. How many times do you have a discussion with somebody who is a different faith, a different ethnicity, a different political perspective? Or do you avoid them? Now, in this case, you're not just losing the ability to think, you're losing the ability to connect with people who think differently. You're trapped in a bubble where everyone agrees with you, which feels comfortable, but leaves you intellectually brittle and socially isolated. What's the societal cost? We're becoming ungovernable. When people can't think critically, they cannot solve complex problems. They can't compromise. They can't distinguish between legitimate disagreement and malicious manipulation. Democracy requires citizens who can reason, debate, and arrive at informed conclusions. Without thinking skills, democratic institutions collapse into tribal warfare, where the loudest voices win, not the most rational ones. Here's what makes this crisis absolutely urgent. We are at an inflection point. Researchers identify tipping points beyond which the process of polarization actually speeds up. As it forces, driving it are compounding that are amplifying the polarization, and forces mitigating polarization are just totally overwhelmed. Some political groups may have already passed this critical threshold. Once you cross that line, reversing cognitive decline becomes exponentially harder. Think about what's coming. AI is getting smarter, faster, more persuasive. Deepfakes and AI manipulated media are becoming increasingly sophisticated and harder to detect. Whether or not they've already influenced major events, the capability exists, and your ability to evaluate real becomes more critical every day. Social media platforms are optimized for engagement, not for truth. Educational systems are struggling to adapt. The information environment is becoming more hostile to critical thinking every single day. If you do not develop critical thinking skills now, if you don't reclaim your capacity for independent thought, you will be swept along by forces you cannot see and you cannot resist. You'll believe what you're told to believe, buy what you're told to buy, vote how you're told to vote. And you won't even realize you've lost the ability to choose. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. Thinking skills can be learned. They can be developed. They can be strengthened to deliberate practice. You're not doomed to cognitive passivity. You can take back control of your mind. Imagine waking up every morning with the confidence that you can evaluate any piece of information that comes your way. No more anxiety about whether you're being manipulated. No more second guessing your decisions because you don't trust your own judgment. No more feeling like everyone else knows something you don't. When you master thinking skills, you become intellectually self-sufficient. You can spot logical fallacies in arguments. You can identify bias in news sources. You can separate correlation from causation. You can ask the right questions instead of accepting convenient answers. You can hold two competing ideas in your mind and evaluate them fairly without your ego getting in the way. You become harder to fool and impossible to control. Political propaganda bounces off of you because you can see through emotional manipulation. Marketing tactics lose their power because you understand the psychological triggers. Social media algorithms cannot trap you in echo chambers because you actively seek out diverse perspectives and challenge your own assumptions. Your relationships improve because you can actually listen to people who disagree with you without feeling threatened. Your career accelerates because you can solve problems others can't. Your decisions get better because you're working from logic and evidence, not fear and instinct. Research shows that innovative teaching methods like problem-based learning and interactive instruction significantly boost academic performance and cultivate critical thinking skills. These aren't just abstract benefits that translate into real-world outcomes. You get better grades, better jobs, better lives, and more importantly, you claim your autonomy. You stop being a passive consumer of information and become an active curator of understanding. Your thoughts become truly your own again. Your beliefs are chosen, not imposed. Your worldview is constructed through rigorous analysis, not algorithmic manipulation. So, this episode, the one you're in right now, is the beginning of a journey. Over the next 8 episodes, we'll break down the specific thinking skills you need to master, like logical reasoning, argument analysis, decision-making frameworks, cognitive bias recognition, and information evaluation. Each episode will give you concrete tools that you can use immediately. But before we get to the tactics, you need to understand why this matters. Why thinking skills aren't just nice to have, they are essential for survival in this modern world. Why the ability to think clearly is the ultimate competitive advantage. The thinking crisis is real. It is real. It's measurable. It's accelerating. But it's not inevitable. You have a choice. You can keep outsourcing your thinking to machines and algorithms, accepting a future where your mind grows weaker with each passing year, Or you can decide that your ability to think, to reason, to analyze, to question, to decide is too valuable to surrender. The world needs people who can think. Your community needs people who can think. You need to be able to think. Not because it makes you smarter than everyone else, but because it makes you free. This is your invitation to reclaim your mind. Everything that follows will show you how. But first, you have to choose what's at stake. Welcome to Thinking 101. Let's rebuild the most important skills you'll ever develop. Over the next 8 episodes, we're building your thinking toolkit from the ground up, including logical reasoning, causal thinking, probabilistic judgment, mental models that let you see what others miss. Each episode drops a specific skill that you will be able to use immediately, not theory, but thinking tools for the real world. Links to each episode will appear in the description as they are released, and you can find the full playlist over on our channel on YouTube or subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcast. Subscribe now, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. Because here's the truth, these skills compound. Miss one, and you're building on a shaky foundation. Watch them all, and you'll think circles around the competition. Now, if you found this valuable, hit the like button. It helps more people discover this series. Drop a comment below. What's one thinking skill you wish you'd learned earlier? I read every single comment. And if you want to go deeper, I write studio notes over on Substack every Monday where I share the personal stories behind what I'm teaching here. In this case, these are the hard-won lessons, the mistakes that taught me why these skills matter, and what it actually looks like to rebuild your thinking from the ground up. This week's Substack talks about my early career and critical thinking skills that I had to learn and apply. Now, the links to that are in the description. Now, in this case, I also talk about the education system's failure to teach students how to think. I share a very personal story of my interaction with the Deputy Secretary of Education for the U.S. Department of Education, telling him something that he did not want to hear. You want to hop over to Substack and check that out. Now, remember, the crisis is real. The solution is here. The next 8 episodes, and we will continue on depending on your feedback and what it is your thoughts are. But I am committed to putting together this series. It will be free of charge. It'll be on YouTube. You must subscribe, hit that notification bell, give me the like, because the solution is here. We are now starting. Let's get to work. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.